I'm gonna go out and say it, man. I think that we might be seeing the beginning of another NBA dynasty. Like they talk so much about the emotions of ring night and like how teams come out flat and how it's hard to get over and all of this and all of that and how all off season the Knicks did all these things to match up with the Celtics. And what happens? The Celtics have an emotional ring night. They raise the banner. They get these massive rings. They come out, tie an NBA record with 29 threes. Jason Tatum on fire. They like Kristaps Porzingis didn't even play. They blew the Knicks out. And again, this is my overreaction from opening night, but are we not sure that this Celtics team isn't better than last year's team based off one game, but still?
Yeah, I mean, like that's, a valid question. If JT and JB are going to, use everything that happened this offseason as motivation to get even better this season, and after one night, that's the way that it's looking, like, I mean, they might be. And continuity goes a long way, right? Like they were still for a lot of the season last year, like trying to integrate Drew Holiday, trying to integrate Kristaps Porzingis, even guys like Pritchard, Hauser, Cornette, like those guys weren't the players that they are right now. And like now when you're looking at this entire team that comes back, it's really only Svi Mikhailuk and O'Shea Brissett who did not come back to this team in the offseason. Like that continuity goes a long way. And I think, I'm not saying that we necessarily saw specifically that on opening night. I think we saw what the Celtics do best, which is exploit mismatches. Like, Karl Anthony Towns, they were going at him every single time down the floor. And that was creating advantages, forcing other guys to help off. And then it's, drive, kick, swing, find an open shooter. And they got guys who just, realistically don't miss when they're open. Like it's crazy. Derek White does not miss open threes in the corner. Drew Holiday does not miss threes in the corner. JT, there was a lot of conversation about his jump shot and him changing his jump shot form. And, how is that going to work? He's got this like weird thing going on with his elbow and he comes out opening night. And like, I don't even know if any of his shots hit the rim. Like everything was nothing but net. And you see teams come out like overly juiced on opening night sometimes. But I really felt like the Celtics found a good way to kind of like bring themselves down back to earth. And I think a lot of that goes with head coach Joe Mazzulla. Like he had those guys ready to go. They knew that the Knicks are the team that everybody else is pegging to be the second best team in the East. And like they came out to prove a point. And Jason Tatum came out and had an absolutely incredible game. This guy's throwing like left-handed zip passes across the court. He's doing a little bit of everything, getting downhill. And then, everybody kind of falls in line behind him. So, for a team that was as dominant as they were last year, winning 64 games, running the table in the postseason, sweeping in the conference finals, only dropping one game in the NBA finals. And then to come out even more motivated on opening night is a scary sight for the rest of the league.
Yeah, I think you hit the point, like the nail on the head with continuity. We talked about that a lot with this team, bringing all the key members of the core back. And I think the other part of it too is they finally got that pressure off their back. There's so much about you guys can't do it, but can you do it when it counts? And now this team is playing freely. Like they like in addition to the motivation of what happened this offseason between the Olympic snub and the Olympic playing time controversy with Jason Tatum, these guys are back and they're like not worried about, man, are we going to actually win one because there's so much pressure mounting up to they've done it now. So now they're just like, okay, let's just add on to what's going on. I think you see that, and we saw that on opening night with what some of those guys were able to do. Now, obviously, I'm not saying they're going to go 82-0 this season. They're going to have some off nights, and they're going to be some games where they put up stinkers, and we're going to see some great quotes that come out. People are going to overreact to it or what have you. But just looking at that and looking at what you could take away from the statement that they made on opening night, and then kind of looking at the big picture. And I guess I'll give myself a pat on the back for saying this. I don't remember when it was I said it, but I do remember holding this belief for a while that, people were freaking out when the Celtics were coming up short, whether it was 2022, whether it was 2020. So many times they came up short in the conference finals or in the finals when it mattered most. And I was like, man, like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown aren't even in their prime yet. And once they get in their prime, think about the state of the rest of the Eastern Conference and where they'll be. Like if they do things the right way, then it'll be their conference and their league for years to come. Fast forward now, I think today is Jaylen Brown's 28th birthday. Jason Tatum is 26. These guys are entering their primes. Like they're not firmly in their prime. They're entering their primes. And you look elsewhere, the Bucks, they're an older team, right? Like Giannis is the young guy on their team and he's about to turn 30, right? Like you look at the 76ers and Joel Embiid is 30. Paul George is 34. Tyrese Maxey is going to have a lot of responsibility as the young guy of that group. The Knicks are a younger team, but we saw what happened for them, and they have some things that they need to answer as well. So when you look at that in the Eastern Conference, it's really, really hard to see a team beating them 4 times in 7 games. Of course, I guess I should say when the playing field is even. Obviously, injuries happen, things like that happen, but it started, and again, they've only won once, but they won. But it is starting to give you that vibe and that feeling, of how we looked at the Warriors. Like, man, how is a team going to figure out how to beat them 4 times in 7 games? And we saw it with Houston when they eventually just built a team exactly to do it. And I will go out on the record and say, had it not been for Chris Paul's injury, who knows what would have happened. But going into that season, I felt like Houston had a chance to do it. I don't think that there's anybody right now that has a chance to do it. And I think the most incredible part about the Celtics is the way that they built their 2 top draft picks that they drafted nearly a decade ago, and then just smart, savvy moves of the guys they've brought in and brought back in recent years. And it makes for a really interesting dynamic.